Hi, all. Welcome to yet another Koot Podcast Series where we discuss global tech adoption trends, global SaaS adoption trends with global industry leaders and tech leaders. And today we have indeed a very special guest with us, the co founder, CEO of Rocketlane, Mr. Srikrishnan Ganesan. Uh, Rocketlane, again, it's a Series C growth stage SaaS company, which is currently serving to 100 plus enterprise grade organizations and transforming their customer onboarding experience. So let's welcome Sri Krishnan. Hi, Sri Krishnan. Thank you so much for joining us and for our audience. Really looking forward to learn a lot from you today, Sri Krishnan.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me on, Nageshwari.
Absolutely. So I have so many questions, but let's start for our audience. Sri Krishnan. Could you start, telling a brief about Rocket Lane and yeah, about yourself?
Sure. Rocketlane is my second venture as founder with the same two co-founders. Previously started a business uh, in the messaging space. If you've all familiar with startups in India like Zomato, Swiggy, Big Basket, Bank
Yeah.
Bazaar, many others, we used to power the chat inside their apps. Got acquired by a company called Freshworks in 2015. Continued to build that business within Freshworks till end of 2019, and then in 2020 we started Rocketlane. Rocketlane operates in a category called professional services automation. We serve more than 800 customers now. Um, so PSA, or professional service automation, is about um teams that run services projects. It could be implementation or onboarding projects. It could be also other kinds of services projects. But for us today, primarily it is implementation onboarding. That's why you
Yeah.
typically see an association with customer onboarding as a category. Um, but we provide a very, very all-in-one software for these teams that helps them plan their work, staff their work, track their work, measure their work, govern their work, communicate the work to the customer, because we also have a customer facing portal which enables that end to end experience of from a new project comes in, let's say a new implementation for your software or AI comes in, and then you need to collaboratively execute on that project with the customer. You need to track your invoicing, revenue recognition for services delivered, all of that as well. We are the
Mhm.
all-in-one software for all of that. And in addition, now we've launched AI that also helps do the work. So think of it as typically there is configuration work, documentation work, migration work, etc. We have agents that will help do that work itself, so that uh, typical services delivery team can start delegating to. So that's our offering.
No, no, absolutely, Sri Krishnan. Could you start your days with, Freshworks, Sri Krishnan? Because I think that was your initial journey, Sri Krishnan.
Yeah, after we got acquired by Freshworks in the previous journey, it was a really strong learning experience for us because we were in this company which was facing hypergrowth. And
Okay.
as an independent company building our previous startup, Conator, we had some really good wins and really good customers. I mentioned,
Yeah.
Bank Bazaar and Zomato, Swiggy, all these very strong names. Um, but once we were inside Freshworks, we understood what true momentum feels like, where globally, there
Yeah.
is such a pull for the product that everyone is coming inbound, and the sales team is just helping customers buy. It's not like a hard sell. It's not like a cold outbound. It's just working, right? And the company scaled very quickly. I remember
Okay.
18 to when we got into Freshworks, it was at
Which year
around
it
18
was?
million,
Which year?
2015.
Okay. When AI
It
was
was
not
around,
even, yeah.
yeah, no one was talking about AI back then. It was the year when people were talking about mobile. Mobile first was the big thing at the time.
Yeah.
Mintra had just gone and said, hey, we will discontinue our website, we'll do only mobile, and so on, right? So that was the time.
Yeah.
And Freshworks was scaling like crazy. Like
Hmm.
just from only inbound working, the company had, I think, in a year scale, a couple of years scale from 15 million to 54 million ARR and continued to grow that way. And we got to experience what product market fit really feels like, right?
Okay.
We knew that, okay, if you have
Yeah.
that PMF, there is such a strong pull, and um, you know, you the customer's pulling more of the product direction from you, and you can really uh, feel it in your, you can see the difference. So for us, having built Conator before that and having experienced inside Freshworks what that pull feels like, we could very clearly tell what was, PMF. We relaunched our product, the chat product inside Freshworks two times.
Okay.
Once as Hotline.io,
Okay.
which had pull but not very strong pull. It still felt like we were pitching it, we were pushing the customer to buy. And then the second time we said, okay, maybe it's a market problem. We are selling only to mobile apps, and mobile businesses aren't yet truly ready,
For
or
this.
regular businesses aren't focused as much on just their mobile app. They don't know what to do with mobile. So let's do web and mobile. And once we did that shift from mobile only to web and mobile, suddenly the
Okay.
product took off. So the second launch, we had actually, I'd written a post about this on, back then there was this thing called Medium, right, where you
Yeah.
will have like very well written posts and so on. So I'd written about product market fit and about how market is the most important thing. And
Okay.
then we launched into web and mobile as a market and saw that immediately work. And we became the
Wow.
fastest product inside Freshworks to hit various revenue milestones,
Wonderful.
experience that pull and growth like the rest of the company. And suddenly I felt finally our team is seeing a reward, because we had been one of the hardest working teams inside Freshworks.
Freshworks.
Like,
Okay.
um, um, so the people who joined our team, it was almost like a subculture within the company, which will be working even harder, um, scaling the product to bigger heights, because mobile apps scaled a certain way, right, in that period. But still, we didn't see the rewards initially of like the
Yeah.
success of the product and hitting the milestones. And now suddenly we saw fastest product to 1 million, 3 million, 9 million, etc. That was fun. And, that it was challenging too, right? Because
Yeah.
suddenly all that growth meant our team needed to cope with the challenge. And
Yeah.
very often I would be calling an engineer at 1 a.m., 3 a.m., saying, hey, something is broken. Can we fix this now, right now? And at the time, it felt like a very, very, hard thing that we were putting everyone through. But later, the same people who went through that would come and tell me, hey, this is the best growth journey I've been through. It felt hard at the time, but looking back, it feels like fond memories where we, survived and learned to thrive in that, learned to fix those, the growth it creates individually when you
Absolutely.
tackle those hard challenges and overcome them. It's special. And I think as a team, there's so many people who, raise their hands and said, "Oh, I will take care of this problem. I will, scale this particular part of the solution, etc. We will rebuild." There was, in fact, a team that, we were on React older version, needed to move to a newer version. They secretly did it over a few weekends because it wasn't getting prioritized, and then said,
Okay.
hey, we are now ready to launch. And
Wonderful.
all of that was, yeah, I think, very, very fond
How,
memories.
how big was the team, Sri Krishna?
Around 120 people.
Okay, okay, great. No, definitely and amazing. I think again, you had a different journey with Conotor and again with the Freshworks. Really patient. I know you're patient enough in the journey, Shri Krishnan. Now, you again. I mean, obviously, you had an inbound more in Freshworks, but let's go back. And then after coming off from Freshworks, you started Rocketlane. Currently, you are a Series C and you are catering to 100 plus enterprise grade organizations. But I want to go step back and during your seed stage, Sri Krishnan, right? How did you pick up the category, and how did your customer base look like? Was it the SMB initially or higher upper market or enterprises? At what point of time, I'm sorry, I'm clubbing two questions here. What point of time did you really feel that enterprise market is You can go ahead with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So 2020, when we came out, we started thinking about what felt broken in the previous journey. And one of the things we clearly saw was this idea of, um, when we went to larger customers, there would always be some anxiety around the implementation. There's a timeline you've committed to. 3 weeks before that, you figure out there is some bottleneck somewhere. Something hasn't happened yet. A customization needs to still be built. You need to push the date, and that's going to cause so much strain. Everyone's nervous about it. Customer feels everything happening is a black box, or you think everything is going smoothly because your team tells you that,
Yeah.
and then there's an escalation. So all of those situations, every single large deal, something will go wrong, and you'll need a hero to come in and save the day. And we thought, hey, how do we move from this experience being hero driven to system driven? So that was the first sort of
Okay.
insight. And we said, can we think about systems that can help automate governance, early warnings, early customer feedback, CSAT along the journey versus out after the end getting like one feedback, better transparency and collaboration between customer and internal teams where everyone sees things the same way. uh, you know, uh, Single pane of glass for customer and you, and if there's a partner for them as well. So
Yeah.
all of these thoughts is where we started, and we started going very deep in understanding how do people do this today? What are the problems? How are they solving for it? We saw some patterns. People had this
Okay.
internal view and customer view of things,
Okay.
and keeping them in sync itself was an issue. And people were building automation from one Asana project to another Asana project, one internal version to external version, things like that,
Yeah.
to keep things in sync. Or they had multiple versions of spreadsheets that were floating around to have the status check at a portfolio level for like a leader manager to know, okay, how are all the projects going? And there was still always hidden information which did not surface in those status calls, etc. Everyone
Okay.
wanted to say, hey, things are going well, till they absolutely weren't. um, they were hopeful that they will recover from a situation next week, etc. Whereas if they had flagged it early to their leader, the leader could have helped them fix the issue early, like come in and course correct, help the customer reorient on dates, or help the like give a early indication to customer that, hey, this timeline is not going to be met, or we need to reduce the scope. All of those things we could see as patterns, and we could see how people were doing it, how the best leaders were doing it, and we were able
Yeah.
to get product ideas from there.
Okay.
So we also tried to validate, we spoke to 70, 80 companies to validate, is this a real
Okay.
problem? Is everyone facing the problem? And we
Okay.
spoke to different levels of stakeholders,
So
like an
this
implementation manager. Yeah,
70, 80, which market it was, Shri Krishna? Was it SMB or?
it was across the board. It was more, I would say, um, higher SMB or lower mid market mostly,
Okay.
um, with a few enterprise sprinkled in. Like maybe
Okay.
4 or 5 were enterprise, but most of
Okay.
them were more like mid market, Series B, Series C, Series D type companies
Okay.
in tech, or larger services companies like 100-member, 300-member services company, which also
Yeah.
had the same problem.
Okay.
And so we started talking to all of these, documenting, asking them to show us how do you do this work
Okay.
today,
Okay.
uh, to visually see what their spreadsheets look like, what they were hacking together outside of products they were using. And we spoke to CEOs, investors, CCOs, implementation leaders, different levels of people, to understand, is the problem awareness there at every level? Is
Yeah.
this a worthy problem to solve? Is this a
So,
top three problem for the company? Because
okay.
if it isn't top three priority for a company, or if it doesn't feed into top three priorities for the company, then maybe it won't be as important a problem for to get the traction and pull. As an
Absolutely.
example, we saw
Yeah.
that a lot of AI companies at the time, this is 2020, 2021, we already had conversational AI taking off.
Yeah.
And all of them would have this common problem of uh, contracted ARR is far ahead of live ARR, because you're like
Yeah.
spending more time in implementation. And
Correct.
we saw this was true for many consumption based products. It was true for many ERP type products as
Yeah.
well. Wherever there was like incremental, you need to turn on more and more flows and use cases and so on. That
Hmm.
contracted was leading the live in a big way. And we
Okay.
thought, okay, this is a board level visibility problem that we can
Hmm.
go and help solve if we
Yeah.
help shrink the timeline of these projects.
Okay, wonderful. So, so obviously the personas will also be, like you mentioned, the C-suits level, right? Because they are the ones who are taking, ERP level decisions in the board meeting. But coming down to the reach out, Shri Krishnan, right? See, inbound versus outbound, right? The GTM strategy. For example, at Koot, when we are going for the outbound, right, we go with the more signal based approach, the intent based approach, and we like to meet the ICP in person, right? Right, as you rightly mentioned, the C suits, right? We want to meet them in person and really want to understand whether the pain point. So in Rocketlane, initially, were you trying to do more inbound when you actually identified, yes, this is a problem worth solving? So how was your GTM strategy, Shri Krishnan? Was it more outbound or inbound?
We did more inbound initially, but we started betting on some outbound. And in a way, you can say we knew that we will first go SMB, but when we are doing SMB, there'll be a few mid market who lean in. Then we'll go to mid market. When we're doing mid market, a few enterprise will lean in.
Okay,
And we had that step by step growth
ladder.
plan.
Hmm.
Yeah. So initially we did like Google Ads, we did G2, like we
Yeah.
had reviews on G2. We took like a paid listing over there to
Hmm.
make sure that we get noticed. And we went after very select audiences. We went after people we knew were using certain other products in our category, etc.,
Okay.
where we knew
Yeah.
we had the right to win. We had like a better product. So it was
Okay.
very targeted initially. But
Okay.
then within the first 6 months, we hired our first BDR who started doing outreach.
Okay.
And we also did our first physical event within those
Yeah.
first 6 months where we traveled to the US,
Hmm.
had a booth at a big enough trade show,
Yeah.
and made noise, right? Like we
Yeah.
needed to do that. And then I think it was after our first 7 8 months is when
Hmm.
we were able to push and set up more one-on-one in-person meetings with slightly larger mid-market companies, where we
Okay.
had now gotten like 50 smaller companies as customers.
Wonderful.
There
Yeah.
were like 3 or 4 mid-market companies within that who heard of us from network and or used us in one place, went to another place, bought us, etc.
Hmm.
So we had some good names as well.
Sure.
And we also used the VC network. We asked
Okay.
VCs
Hmm.
to connect us with, like, whenever a VC wants to talk to us.
Yeah.
As part of that, we will prepare for that meeting with who in their portfolio can benefit most from us. And
Hmm.
as part of the call, we'll say, hey, by the way, you've met us, you learn about us. I'm sure you have questions on how valuable this is. I
Hmm.
think if you introduce us to these 3 companies in your portfolio, uh, we will be able to show them what we do, what we can do for them, and you will be able to validate whether that's valuable to them or not by doing a back channel check with them. And they made those intros, and from those we
Yeah.
ensured that we went and met those companies in person.
Hmm.
I remember going and meeting companies like Clary and Kata and so on in person, and that
Okay.
helped us convert those at that time bigger names than who we were working with, global winners in categories, and go and get their business.
Hmm. No, no, absolutely, Sri Krishnan. See, when you met Claritas, obviously you met the CEO and things are moving, fine. I mean, it's a top-down approach, right? However, I want to slightly shift the gear. And when you have chosen your first enterprise, so I want to listen to that story, Sri Krishnan. How was your first win, and how did the org structure navigation look like? Because there are multiple decision makers, right? And what was that one thing which caught their attention? Was it through the reference or your USP? So how was it, Shri Krishnan?
So first enterprise customer was in the CLM space for us, and we got introduced again by one of their growth investors at the time, uh, who
It
I
was
met
against
at
your
an event.
investors. Okay.
Yeah. Um, they were fairly big, but they still took a meeting because one of their earlier investors had put us in touch.
Okay.
And once we met the teams, they told us a lot of things that they wanted, which we had none of it. And we
Example,
showed
could you
them.
share?
So this is before we became a full-fledged PSA. We
Okay.
had built some of that um, front office needs of a service team around collaboration, customer portal, project management, etc. We were still building out we had time tracking, but we didn't have resource management, we didn't have rate cards, we didn't have project accounting, all of which they needed.
Okay.
And um, when they spoke about those things, a lot of the things that the nuance and detail they were checking on, we hadn't even like fully
Prepared
fleshed
for.
out what we're going to build, right? Like
Yeah.
we knew roughly we need to build these things, but the detail of it, we hadn't specced out or worked on yet.
Yeah.
So we were like, okay, this is like a very unlikely deal. Uh, and, we just showcased what we had done well. And they say, hey, this all looks very nice. We'll get in touch with you when we think we're ready for change. And then the next year is when they got in touch again. And they said, hey, this thing is coming up for renewal for us. We really like that customer portal aspect that you showed. No one else has ever shown us that. And we know you have these gaps, but if you can guarantee that you will build that by this time,
Okay.
then we are willing to bet on you. And then we went through many, many rounds of demos. One of the interesting things for me has been, I think whenever it is enterprise,
Yeah.
it is more demo to different stakeholders, less trial and people getting hands on. That's been an interesting observation for us, where it's very purposeful demos for different stakeholders based on what they need to see and they want to validate. They will give you the use cases and say, how do you do this, show me that. And it all happens in like one or two longer sessions, like 1 hour, 1.5 hour sessions for each
Yeah.
of those stakeholders. And then the committee, I guess, rates you on various parameters to decide like their scorecard. One of the things we have done more, I would say, in the last 2 years, we didn't do it before, was ask the customer for, hey, show me what your scorecard looks like. And now we critique the scorecard. We give them a score on their scorecard saying, hey, this scorecard is doing well in these areas, but you aren't thinking about these other areas. Are you sure? Is that intentional, or have you missed out on these areas? So that we can influence their scorecard in a way. And if they aren't thinking about things they should be thinking about, because the world is changing quickly, uh, then they actually appreciate it, that hey, you opened our eyes to these things that we should have thought about.
Wonderful.
So they change their scorecard as well based on what you show them. So that's been good. And then in this case, in that first enterprise deal for us, the EVP at the end of it said, I really like your product, but I think you're a very small company today. We are much bigger than all of your other customers. So I worry about making this decision on my own. I
Yeah.
want you to meet our CTO and CEO as well. And I want their stamp on working with you as a company. So
Okay.
bring your tech co-founder to the CTO call. You meet the CEO. I want that alignment to happen. And luckily, they brokered that alignment. Uh,
Okay.
Before it came to this, it looked like we were losing the deal. So I actually took a chance and flew to Seattle because I
Okay.
knew their leadership was in
Yeah.
Seattle. And I just said, hey, can can I meet? I'm here in Seattle. And I wasn't getting responses. I hustled a lot. I found one of our angel investors had a friend at this company who was their COO at the time. So he put me in touch with the COO. I went and met the COO then. So I didn't meet the CEO, but I met the COO. And they really liked our story and the fact that I had come in person and hustled to meet them. All of that they appreciated. They put in a word with the rest of the org that, hey, we should take these folks seriously. I think they're a high quality team. And, the founder was impressive. Let's chat with them. And then that CTO conversation and CEO conversation happened. I won't forget those because I think, the CEO was pretty hard on me initially. Uh, I'm not going to describe what happened, but
Yeah.
at the end of it, he said, "Hey, I care about your success. That's why I'm giving you all this feedback."
Wonderful.
And then it almost turned into like a mentor-mentee relationship,
Wonderful.
where I would sync with him every 6 months or so, give an update on the business, etc.
Okay.
But yeah, it took a lot of effort, but we were able to win their business and
Wonderful.
use that win to learn and do a lot more such deals after that.
Yeah, actually, I could relate to exactly what you said, Sri Krishnan, from the other side, because we regularly talk to the decision makers and, see, as you mentioned, right, the one thing which they keep mentioning is the customization, right, for the different stakeholders. And as you rightly mentioned, we keep looking at the customization and they should fit into our systems, which you rightly mentioned. How much time did it take, Sri Krishnan, for was it a POC for one stakeholder, which is different than the no?
It's just demos that we did over a period
Okay.
of, let's say, 2-3 months,
Mm-hmm.
that we did those demos. Yeah.
Sure. And one more important thing that you pointed out, you went against your ego and you didn't take up the cold, response, and you kept nudging and looking into the common network. Yeah, I think so. They took that seriously, right?
Yep,
Abs-
absolutely. I think the
Absolutely.
fact that we came and met in person and you know even how you dress matters. Like if you go
Okay.
formally versus wearing a t-shirt like this, I think it makes a difference. You better be safe in a
Okay.
big, meeting. Go
With formals.
dressed more formally and show your
Okay.
seriousness in winning the business. I think that makes a difference.
Absolutely, Sri Krishna. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, moving on to the next question, Sri Krishna. Now, how did obviously you're at the enterprise level and you have good 50 plus SMBs. Now, when you're entering the growth phase, right? Which one did you choose to be to get more and more quality, enterprise logos, or go aggressively and just start building the pipeline? So, what was your growth strategy after winning the enterprise logos, Sri Krishna?
I think we did two things. One is, um, I think true enterprise, we didn't chase them even after winning the first one. We said, let us implement and be successful with one or two that find us, come to us. So we
Okay.
understand what it takes, because only when we work with 4 or 5 of these will we understand, have we covered all use cases? Are there more complexities to handle, etc. So we did, uh, we sort of didn't push hard into enterprise. Wherever enterprise saw us, met us, and liked us, we said, okay, how do we turn this into a deal for us? Because we had a lot of momentum in mid market. We kept pushing that
Yeah.
mid market wins
Yeah.
on one side. In mid market, we focused on the right kind of logos. So we
Okay.
said, okay, Forbes Cloud 100 looks like a good list. How can we go and win more of those? Now we
Hmm.
have 20 of the Forbes Cloud 100 using us. So that's a very
Yeah.
unique place to be. And
Okay.
we made it a targeted list. Enterprise, we didn't do targeted. We were
Okay.
more like, if by chance we have someone has seen us, someone has moved from one company into an enterprise who knows us from before, has used us in a different company, how do we use those ins to verify if we'll be a good fit and then go and win that business? That is how we did it. And once we got, our first 5 plus implemented and live with us, that's when we said, okay, now we can treat enterprise as a segment and go hunt
Okay.
enterprise.
Okay.
So we were sort of careful about how we went about it.
How you approached it. No, absolutely. Now, second last question, Shri Krishna, of this podcast. For example, you have seen multiple companies, and I'm sure you are pitched to multiple SMBs. Now, what is the pattern you observed? Option A, I mean, the category A, where the organizations are continuously implementing and buying tech products, versus B, where they are little, always thinking next year, despite having the same resources, talent, and budget. Sri Krishna.
Mhm. I think it almost feels like there are, as you said, there are companies who are those, you know, uh, early movers who will like the shiny things that they see, uh, take a bet on something new, even when it doesn't satisfy all of the needs. Uh, and typically it's driven by something. For example, at Freshworks, our chat product, it was driven by, hey, can this create a delta in the customer experience? If it can create a delta in the customer experience for me as a business, then I want to bet on this. Uh, Same thing I've seen with um, um, even for Rocketlane, the first enterprise we won, it was that customer portal, which was the shiny object. So there are companies which will want to lean in on customer
Hmm.
experience, or I think in some cases, employee experience as well.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that is when like a new player gets a edge to a chance to win, right?
Hmm.
Where it moved the needle for my customer or for my employee in a significant way, and I want to bet on this
Hmm.
versus just, hey, my reporting needs need to be stronger, better. Like for that, you will always bet on legacy systems.
Hmm.
The bet on a new company typically comes from customer experience or employee experience being a thing, and so you need to find which companies value that customer experience or employee experience. And then these are more likely to buy. And then you can take those stories and put pressure on the others saying, hey, do you
Hmm.
not care about your customer experience or
Yeah.
employee experience? Because this thing is changing. This world is changing.
And thanks to AI, there are so many micro buyers now. Gone are the days where CIOs or CDOs are the only ones who are evaluating. Now, for HR, there's so many hundreds of products for talent acquisition, for HRBP. Yeah, no, no, wonderfully put, Shri Krishna. Now, entering to the last question of this podcast, Shri Krishna, one advice to our viewers and, to the tech, entrepreneurs out there who are looking up to you, Shri Krishna.
Uh, I think one of the most important things I have learned through this Rocketlane journey, I would say, is uh, think hardly about think very hard about what is your right to win in a space, and why should someone choose you versus many others who may come up in the space. Uh, the answer in my head for us at Rocketlane was that we went narrower but deeper. The answer may vary for various types of people. For us, it
Hmm.
was about focus, that, hey, we have so much more focus on a certain type of customer that we've built very unique experiences for them. We've innovated on product, and we are able to push the boundary faster on that product innovation for a specific narrower set of customers. And
Okay.
that makes us the obvious choice for those narrow set of customers. Though we are saying no to many other types of customers, we can attack it sliver by sliver. We can say today it's only for this. Tomorrow we will also attack one more sliver of the market, but it
Hmm.
should be a big enough market. Uh, the narrow niche should still be wide enough. So that's
Yeah.
a thing you need to figure out.
Okay.
But for us, that was our right to win, right? Like we are very purpose built, became our right to win. So figure out what that right to win is for you, and spend a lot of time thinking about that. That's my input.
But see, with limited funding and many founders, they burn their fingers initially. So how do they identify their ICP initially?
Before you build anything, spend a lot of time just researching, right? I think that's one more thing I would say. Understand the market size, the market momentum. Uh, one quote I won't forget is, rising tide lifts all boats. You want to play in a market which is a rising tide. You don't want to go against the market and say, hey,
Absolutely. Hmm.
there is no momentum, but I will make it happen. Especially if you don't have funding, You can't make the noise, make a category happen. You need to play in a category that already has some tailwinds. And why is that tailwind there, right? So I think that is the uh, that is the thing to spend a lot of time on ahead of anything else, even before you decide
Sure.
what to build. Just immerse yourself in understanding the category.
I think you did the same at Rocketlane. You mentioned you spoke to so many customers. Sure,
Yes.
sure. Sure, Shri Krishnan. Thank you so much for your time and looking forward to be in touch with you. Thanks again, Shri Krishnan.
Well, thank you so much for having me on.